a beautiful day. Yes, oh dear, oh my. That's great. Oh, hello, hello, hello. I am the king. I am King Looney. And I am so happy to be here. Yes, because I am the king and I can do whatever I want. Oh, hello, kids. Yes, hello. I am so happy that you are here with me today because I have so much to teach you about me because it is all about me, you know. I am a wonderful king and I love to be here because as a king, I can do anything. That is right. I can go anywhere and do anything because it is all about me. Me. Oh, yes. Well, I just wanted to share with you all the things that I love to do, which is nothing. That's right. I love to do nothing because I am the king and I don't want to do anything. I don't want to work and I just enjoying myself whatever I want to do and I just... Hey, what is this? Where did this come from? Hey, what does this say? Working? That is what I'm talking about. Working. That is what I do not want to do. I hate to work. And who needs it? That's right. Who needs work? I want to do whatever I want to do. And what I like to do is just lie by my pool, maybe take a nap, then get up, eat some food, and maybe take another nap. That is right. And I love to just tell people what to do. I say, go here, do that, make me more pizza. That is right. I like my pizza. And I'll tell them what to... What? This word is coming up. Where do these words come from? Okay, what does this say? Oh, interacting. Interacting. I don't know. What does this word mean? I'm not good with this. Interacting. If it means having to do with people, then that is right. I don't want to deal with people. I like to just tell them what to do, and then I just tell them, I want to go and be my own king. Yes, and you listen to me. Except when they're my friends, they have some great ideas. They like to come up with some crazy things like drive a golf cart into a pool full of jello. And that is great. I love doing that. And I get to make my own choices. What is this? Deciding? Yes, that is what I said. I get to decide what I want to do. That's right. So, in everything as a king, I don't have to listen to anyone. Oh my goodness, why are these words coming up and up and up? Obey, obey. No, that is what I don't need to do. I am the king, I tell you. I am the king. And I don't have to obey anybody because I am so smart. Speaking. That is what I'm doing. I am speaking, and I am speaking so smartly because I am the king. I make all the rules, and I get to do whatever I want because I have all the money. Money? Look at that. It is the money, and I get to do what I want to do. Well, I don't know where these words come from, but I am going to go as the king and go be myself and do my own thing because I like to be the king. So, au revoir, kiddos. What in the world's going on here? That's very interesting. Oh, hey, kids. I just was passing by, and I heard this guy speaking. He sounded like a king or something, and he was getting all kind of like crazy because of these words that he was hearing or seeing coming up. And, I guess these are the words he's talking about. I wonder what these all have to do with. We have the word speaking. Well, that's a good thing to think about, speaking. Managing money. Then we have deciding. Well, that means just choosing things. Working. Well, that's a good thing to do. I wonder what he thought about working. He's the king and all. Maybe he didn't really like that. Then we have obeying. Well, that's a big word. We all kind of know what obeying means, but that's, as a king, I don't know what he thought about that. Oh, and then this word interacting. And interacting, well, that's just a word, kind of a big word that just means, how do we deal with people? How do we relate to people and friends and our parents and anybody else in our life? Interacting, that's a good word. Now, wait a minute. If we look at these words, working, speaking, obeying, interacting, managing money, and deciding, those letters at the beginning of each word look very familiar. Let's just see here. I have a couple letters back here. Let's see what they spell. We have a W here. Let's just put that here. W. It's a good start. And interacting, that's the next, I think, important idea. Because once you're interacting, you have people that you need to think about. How do we relate to them? What do we say to them? How do we talk? Talking. That's a great next word. So we have working, interacting with people, and then how do we speak? What do we say? That's a big one because things that come out of our mouth sometimes aren't sounding too good, right? There are times we say things we shouldn't say. Well, that's interesting. So that's true. Then we have to decide, making a decision about what we say. So let's think about that, a D. So deciding, that's all kinds of choices. And we have choices every day that we need to make. Obeying and managing money. Well, both of those are just so important because if we're obeying, then we should be doing most of these other things when we're obeying God, when we're obeying our parents. And then in the end, we have this idea of managing money, which is kind of an interesting idea. But all of these things take something, a big idea that we have here. What does this spell? Let's look at this word. Oh, W-I-S-D-O-M. Wisdom. Now, isn't that amazing? All of these ideas of working, speaking, obeying, interacting with people, managing money, deciding things, all come down to that big word, wisdom. Isn't that amazing? And that is exactly what we're going to be talking about for the next few weeks. There are so many books in the Bible and passages in the Bible that speak to wisdom that I just thought this was a great opportunity to kind of move from what we talked about before, which had all to do with love and how do we love people, how do we love that people that God calls us to love, even on the outside that we don't really necessarily think, I don't really want to hang out with that person or get to know that person. But God calls us to love so many people, and He welcomes everybody into His big family. But it goes beyond that, right? When we are part of that big family and when we're living life here before the new creation, we have a lot to think about, a lot to do. And it's not just about doing what is right. It's not just about, how do we listen to God and only do what He says, but it's a lot to do with wisdom, because that's a big word. It doesn't just mean like, I could tell you lots and lots of good facts about lions, and I could tell you how big they are, how sharp their teeth are, how furry they are, how they hunt. But would it be very wise for me then to go and pet the lion in the zoo? Not very wise indeed. So when we think about being smart versus being wise, that's what we're going to be talking about. And we're going to think about making wise choices, thinking about how do we work in a wise way, speak, obey, interact with our friends, choose our friends, and then even manage money. All these ideas come down to wisdom. And so to begin our time together, beginning on wisdom, I thought it'd be great to actually do a little craft, because we're going to be talking a lot about wisdom for the next couple of weeks. And where do we find wisdom in the Bible? Well, there's a lot of passages and a lot of books that talk about wisdom. I'm going to start with Proverbs, but we're going to look at a couple different places. But in Proverbs chapter 3, verse 13, it says, "Blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding." Well, blessed are those who find wisdom and those who gain understanding. How in the world do we do that? Well, that led me to think about a place that doesn't really necessarily speak to wisdom all the time. It's the book of Psalms. And if you remember, we talked about Psalms when we looked at Psalm 100. And we talked all about these different things of singing and praising God. And that's mostly what the Psalms do. They praise God, but they also pray and they seek the Lord in many different ways. But at the very, very beginning of the book of Psalms is Psalm 1. And in that psalm, it talks about a tree. So this is how Psalm 1 goes. It says, "Blessed is the one who does not walk in the step of the wicked, or stand in the way of the sinners, or sit in the company of mockers, but those who delight in the law of the Lord and who meditate on this law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever he does will prosper. Not so for the wicked. They are like the chaff, and the wind blows them away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked leads to destruction." Well, how do we get to that? So how am I connecting these two ideas of finding wisdom? Well, the way to wisdom is through Jesus, right? In fact, Jesus is called wisdom in parts of the Bible. And so when we think about being with Jesus, understanding who Jesus is, it is very much like a tree being planted by streams of water. And so that's why I thought it would be a great idea to look at a craft that I'm going to do for us today. So on my paper here, I've already glued on a piece of grass, a hill. You can, if you don't have paper to glue and stuff, totally you can get some crayons and just draw this into place like this, make a pretty grass. And then we are going to use a little piece of paper to create a stream. So I'm just going to take some glue here. I like to use glue and paper to make it just a little, it just stands out a little more, that's all. But you are more than welcome to just break out colors and pencils and crayons. So we have our stream. Now when we think about the tree being planted by streams of water, what does that mean? Well, think about it. If you had a tree planted in the desert, it is not going to do well, right? So we need the water for a tree to grow and to thrive and to become, filled with fruit. And so here we have our tree planted by the streams. And just like a tree next to water, growing and gaining fruit, that is exactly what we need. Jesus is the stream. Jesus is the one who gives us the fruit in our lives. Jesus is the one who gives us wisdom. So then what do we do next? Well, what is our tree missing here? We have just the branches and the trunk. We need our leaves, right? So I was just going to take some green paper and just, go to town by just ripping out some different shapes to make our leaves. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. You don't have to make it even look like, it just can be cut up in random shapes, right? So just go to town, rip up a few pieces of paper, and then grab a marker. We're going to think about now, what happens when we are planted in Jesus and by the streams of water? We're looking for wisdom. Well, wisdom for what? As we just looked about at all those different words, there are so many things in life that we need wisdom for. Like the very first thing is working, right? So we're going to think about work as we think about wisdom, because it talks about the opposite of working is what? Well, it's being pretty lazy. So we're going to think about work when we think about wisdom. What's another thing? Well, how about a good one? Friendships, right? As we heard our king, he doesn't like to listen to people. But then we need to think about, well, if we're going to treat our friends well, how do we treat them? But also, who do we choose as friends? There's lots of things about wisdom and friendships, in especially Proverbs. So we're going to think about friends. What are some other things we need wisdom for? Well, as we looked at in those words, big one. We're just going to write our words, right? What comes out of our mouth? It can sound very foolish if we say things that are either unkind or we just make suggestions that we know are probably not the best idea. Our words mean a lot. What other things need wisdom? Well, we have money. We could also write something like time. How do we use our time well? We need wisdom for, again, just making the big one, making choices. So I just came up with a few. You just keep going and come up with as many things as you can think of that you need to be reminded of. Where in my life do I need wisdom? And then you just glue them onto your tree. And then, as we go through these next couple lessons, as you come back, we're going to talk about each of these different ideas. Where do we need wisdom in our life? And I'm just going to write here, Psalm 1. Because when it all comes down to it, it's about how are we soaking in Jesus? How are we by a river, a stream of living water? A living water, that just gives so many cool imagery, right? It's a beautiful river. It's soaking. It's like if you're thinking about, the hot weather, it's summertime now, you get so thirsty. Well, you need that drink, right? So it's the same idea with Jesus. If we're just sitting in Jesus and loving him and worshiping him, giving him our life, submitting to him, that will bring us so much, not just joy like we talked about, but wisdom also. In fact, I'm going to end with one other verse found in Proverbs, which again is a book that is filled with sayings all about wisdom. And in the same chapter that I read that other verse, blessed are those who find wisdom and who gain understanding, right before that it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. We're going to go over that verse a couple times later on, but that's a huge one. The way we start with wisdom has to do with Jesus and our walk with him. So we can think of it as a river, we can think of it as a path, but all it comes down to is how do we love and worship Jesus? And if we love and worship Jesus, Everything we think about, everything we decide, every interaction we have with people, our friends, every choice we make, how are we thinking about it all through Jesus? So I cannot wait to talk to you more about this, and maybe we can help our dear friend King Looney there get an understanding of what true wisdom is. So I hope that you will join me, and I just will see what we can learn about with wisdom in all of these different areas.